in certain part of your body, mainly your hand. Some people will get hit on their bum or, all sorts of things.
And did you experience that?
Of course I do. My math was really bad when I was in middle school.
Is it not bad now?
It is bad, but no one can punish me now.
Let me get the whip. This is episode 54, talking about parenting styles between Taiwan and the USA. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Taiwanica Podcast. My name is Eric, one of your hosts here. Proudly here to bring you a very exciting episode that was introduced to us by one of our students. Justin, if you're listening to us now, thank you for the fantastic idea. And now, without further ado, I would like to introduce the other fantastic, spectacular host here on Taiwanica Podcast, Anita. How are you doing today?
I'm doing okay. Thank you for asking.
Absolutely. How do you feel about today's episode?
I'm very excited.
Oh.
I'm
passionate.
Yeah.
This is something that you are very interested in, isn't it?
Yes, you can say so. I was interested in, baby brains, relationships between kids and their parents, and just basically my passion.
Absolutely. It's not just your passion, but this is actually something that you teach other people how to do better in, which is parenting styles mixed between the two of these. Is that right?
That's correct. I'm teaching a lot of clients and students about how to solve the issue between the relationship between the families and their parents, of course.
Well, that's very interesting, and I'm very excited to hear your opinion on these things. I will also be sharing my general opinions. I am not a professional in any way when it comes to parenting. I'm a dad, and I fail.
Don't say that.
But I fail with love.
That's true.
And the thing about me is that I'm going to just basically be sharing what general Americans do. Keep in mind, parenting is a unique skill that everyone does differently, but there are commonalities. That's what I'm going to be sharing today. It's just basically the commonalities of the USA. Anita's going to be sharing some commonalities about Taiwan as well, but she's also going to kind of give us some guidance on maybe what to do better.
Yes, and one thing I would like to mention before we dive into all the details, parenting is not easy. It's difficult for everybody else. And me, not just everybody else, sorry. It's just for everybody, period. So just keep in mind, parenting is difficult because father and mother, they all have different point of view. They have different feelings. They have different things they cared about, and they have different expectation for their kid. And depends on what kid they are having. Like boys, girls, they will all be different. And don't even mention about, which is another topic that we are going to include, the relationship, like Eric and I, we have coming from different countries and grew up in a very different cultural aspect. That will put a lot of challenge to a family, but it's not a bad thing. So just keep that in mind. There is no good parent, there is no bad parent. We are sharing from the very neutral point of view. So like Eric mentioned, I will share some insights. So I'm very excited about this.
Yes, absolutely. So without further ado, we're going to dive on in. Just to give you an idea of what's going to happen here is I will share one point of view from the United States, and then afterwards, Anita will be sharing her feedback and then telling us one point of view about Taiwan. And then I'll be sharing my feedback based on what I've experienced while living in Taiwan. So this is kind of going to be the back and forth that we'll be doing throughout the entire episode. So we hope you enjoy, and we're going to dive in right now. Okay, so we're going to start diving into the first one here, which in the United States is all about how children and adults communicate with each other. And the biggest thing that is a challenge for a lot of families in the past was being able to emotionally connect with their child. Nowadays, we have a couple of different groups of people. One of them is the older generation, where they believe that emotions are not necessary. And they think that if I'm going to teach my child how to feel, I'm raising a girl. And so, in a sense, any boy in the United States has been taught that you're not allowed to express your feelings. Now, in newer generations, for example, my sister, who has teens right now, she has been trying to change this point of view and make it so that she can be able to allow her children to express themselves freely and fully about whatever emotion that they have. And this is actually a commonality within the United States these days, that maybe Anita and I both didn't get, which my mother never thought about me expressing my emotions was a good thing. Neither were for most of my other friends who were men. And so nowadays, like I mentioned, it's a huge switch where we're trying to now understand children, not only what they say, but what is the meaning behind those words. Why are you feeling angry? Is it because of, you don't want to clean the dishes right now and I'm telling you to do it? Or is it because something happened at school that made you feel really bad? So there's a connection behind all of these emotions that our children don't really recognize. And our job as parents is to basically guide them through the process. Right now they feel this certain emotion, but it's not necessarily because of their present condition. There's something that happened recently in the past or maybe farther in the past that made them feel this way, and now it's coming up. And we're there to basically be open ears. So in the United States, this has been becoming a very popular way of thinking in terms of parenting.
I think this one is really good because, kids, they will... I actually noticed about the emotion expression, the whole thing from a kid's book because, we take our son to a library very often. There was some kids book. We check out, there are a lot of kids book expressing or teach kids actually different kinds of emotions. They will use a very simple illustration telling, this person is feeling angry, and show you the face, and they will tell you, it's okay. Sometimes you feel different kinds of emotions. They were just emotions. And sometimes even when you don't know the reason why, it's also okay, So I think that from the education point of view, I think this one is really good because you teach kids knowing about their emotions. And in order to express your emotion fully, you have to understand where is it coming from and why you're experiencing. So I think that's really good. Like in America, in general, even when I was in public, some kids will be pouting for something they cannot have. And the mom will be like, why are you doing this? Tell me how you feel like this. The kids will be like, because I want to play 5 more minutes or things like this. They will have this safe space for the kids to fully express what they feel.
Absolutely.
And how they feel.
Beautiful. No, it's definitely what we've been seeing lately. And I think it's a very positive change.
Yeah.
So what about in Taiwan? Is this a common thing, or what is the common thing to do in terms of when a parent is trying to express themselves to their child?
For me, I think Taiwan is a very special country. I think I mentioned it probably a couple of times before. Taiwan is a new country compared to the world history. Taiwan is a very new independent country. So we are adopting a lot of things at the same time. So the education or parenting style compares to, my parents or my sister's generation could be a little bit different because we are changing all the time. We are learning new different kinds of styles. So when I'm sharing this, it's from majority of the Taiwanese people. They are doing. I'm not saying we are not, allowing people to express their feelings. But most of the people in Taiwanese conservative or traditional family is not allowing us to share our feeling freely. Mainly because I feel it's unnecessary. Or the parents will feel like, if you feel this way, you are weak, so you will get hurt either by your future partner or your friends or the peer. The parents wanted to protect their kids by not getting hurt, so they're just not in the system. We don't share our feelings. I remember when I was a kid, sometimes I would feel sad. I was very shy and scared of a lot of things. So little things can make my heart go I was, scared, and I don't know how to express my feeling. And I remember there was one time I was crying, finally. I forgot what happened, but I was crying because I was so sad because of something that happened in school. And my mom got so angry. My mom was like, do you really think tear can solve everything? Those kind of statement.
Yeah.
So in Taiwan, simply put it this way, we do not pay a lot of attention about kids expressing their feelings.
Right. It's more about toughen yourself up, be strong.
Yes.
Don't allow the emotions to take over.
Yeah.
If you do, you fail kind of mindset.
Yes, or you will be considered as the weak part of the family or in any kind of group, which I wanted to put in the label here.
Sure. What's one of the terms of Taiwan?
The first one is collectivism.
Group mindset.
Yes, emphasizing the peace and the harmony in groups. Doesn't matter what group, like between you and your brothers and sisters, between you and your family, between you and your classmates, between you and your class, between you and your school. Every kind of group, it's not just about you, it's about everybody else.
Right.
If you have a different opinion, figure it out by yourself, because that's not what everybody else is thinking. If you have a different opinion, if you have different thoughts that's different from everybody else, you are breaking the peace.
Unless you are the authority, right?
Unless you are the leader of any kind of group.
Right.
So father, mother, teacher.
Whatever.
You know it, yeah. So we do emphasize on the harmony and peace. So you can see a lot of people are just, if you in the class, Taiwanese class, I say, does anybody have an opinion or anybody have questions? We always say no.
Yeah.
Because that's what we've been told when we're a kid, very young age. Like, we do not put our needs in front of everybody else.
And so, is there a specific reason for that? Like, is it just because of the culture, or is it because generations have been doing this for ever since beginning of Taiwan, or is there another more specific reason why this happens?
If I dive deep to look at this issue, the reason could be vary. Like in the beginning, we were colonized by Japan. Or if a country was colonized by other people for many times, we learn how to obey. So we learn how to be just like everybody else. Don't be the one that stand up, otherwise you'll get in trouble.
Right. It's like life-threatening, right?
Yes. It's like, survival instinct. That's what we've been told based on our history. So again, I mentioned it. Taiwan is a very new country, so if you talk to the person who is like 2 generations back, like your grandparents, they probably still share this kind of experience. Like
Sure.
when you're a kid, they are not allowed to speak Mandarin, Chinese, or they cannot speak Taiwanese,
Right, or Hakka
or
yes. Yanjumin, stuff like that.
Yeah,
right.
You have to be like anybody else.
So either fit in or get kicked out, or even worse, maybe, sacrifice your life for being an individual.
Yes, that's the very old point of view. Like if you stand out, that means you are also bring the threat to the group that you are belong to. For example, you bring threat to your family if you're different from everybody else. So this kind of principle, I'll call it a principle, they're still following it. But again, because our society has been developed really, really fast now. But even though that, a lot of people still have this kind of mindset in their back of their heads, like we have to be like everybody else.
It's very interesting because that leads to how United States and Taiwan is so different in my next point. And that's for us, we were also attempted to be colonized by other countries at the very beginning of the United States, such as France, Germany, and Great Britain. Great Britain being the greatest of them all. But we were capable to fight against these colonizers to the point where we gained independence through our fighting. And this kind of generated the sense of independence being the birthright of every American. And so for all United States citizens, the goal really in the back of our minds is to be as different and unique as possible. And so that being said, parents, when they are raising their children, they already know that this is kind of an innate feeling that their children are going to have because we too have it. So we have something that we need to focus on instead, which is setting limits and boundaries for our children.
You're too free.
Yes, you are too free. Exactly. So we have the opposite phenomenon happening in the United States from Taiwan, which is our children will, do what they want. They'll wear what they want. They'll be where they want. They'll have friends with whomever they want. And this kind of situation causes, good feelings if they are done well. But if they are taken to an extreme, then this can definitely cause issues for a lot of things that the parents have to go through. And so because of that, we have to, at an early stage of life, give them an idea of what is okay to do and what is something that they should really focus on, maybe not doing too much of. So consistent rules, making so that they can feel more responsible and have accountability. Such, for example, that right now in Anita and I's relationship, our son has two different parents. You know, Anita and I have a lot of similar traits in our personalities, but one of the biggest things that's different from us is that Anita is the nurturer in our family, and I am the rule setter. I am the discipline maker. And so for that, our son gets a full, healthy relationship with his parents where he knows where to have fun, but he also knows what is not okay to do. And so because of that, he has created his own independence around us, but he knows that there is a certain restriction that he should respect. It's not about like him not being able to have fun. It's more about him being able to know that if I stay within this area, I am being responsible. And I really love this word responsible, because if you break it down, it means response-able. So if someone says no to you, you can respond in the way that you think is best, you know, whether that's a yes or a no. And so this is the thing that we're trying to teach our son. And most Americans these days are trying to teach their children, because if you do not, like me, when I was a child, my mom did not set boundaries for me. And keep in mind, bless her heart, she raised me by herself.
That's true.
And having a boy with no father is really difficult, because boys learn from their fathers about this kind of stuff. Know their limits, know their rules. And I didn't have that. So what happened? I was crazy. I was all over the place, bouncing off the walls, going in different places, going into random people's houses when I was 5 years old, say, hey, can I come in? You know, I did lots of crazy things that normal children would not do. And sure, I gained a lot of benefit from that, but I also had a lot of risks involved with that, that luckily for me, I came out alive from. But a lot of children, when they don't have that, they end up doing things that are, you know, dire, things that can cause them great stress or even life-threatening. And so the idea that we learn in America is that it's good to be free, but know what freedom is, respect it. And if you do something that is too free, that affects other people or yourself to harm you, be careful in the future, because you're going to cause, you know, greater stress. So that's kind of like the idea. And so yeah, I think that's something that's very different between the Taiwan and USA. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, and then when you were just talking about this, I have this idea all of a sudden just popped in my head. It's like I'm becoming an American citizen, so I've kind of like learned something about the American history. You guys are emphasizing freedom and independency. And then just thinking about what is Taiwan emphasizing? Like the whole country, the nation thing is unify.
Absolutely.
Right? So it's kind of like, you know, interact with the country and the people, or what they are believing, what are they going to teach the value to their kid. It kind of explained it there, what you just say, like freedom, independency. But the boundary things, I think it's really good, because I've definitely seen a lot of people here. They know boundaries, like boundaries between families and friends, what is okay, what is not okay. And, you know, how to respect other people's boundaries is not taking it personally. So, oh, because you don't allow me to do this, then we are not true friends. You know, I've seen a lot of people are learning, even adults, they are practicing building the boundary, because one is not easy. But yet it's a very important skills to have, which is set boundaries. And coming back to what the things I just mentioned, you know, in Taiwan, we are emphasizing the harmony in the group. Group is the most important things. So we don't have boundaries.
So what's an example of that, in, let's say, for friendship? Since we already kind of have an idea of what it's like with parents, you know, in Taiwan, I would like to share my point of view really quick before you answer that. It's just in Taiwan, I know that with parents and family, there are no boundaries in terms of what can be talked about. So a very specific example is when you get married, the parents will ask you, when are you going to have kids? And that's a constant repetitive thing. Or if you are an older man and you're the only man in the house, they ask you, when are you going to find yourself a wife, or when are you going to find yourself a girlfriend? And these are no boundaries, right? They're just direct questions that are asked at the dinner table or when you just come visit for an hour. These things are brought up. In the United States, this is unheard of. You know, they might bring them up when it's a really personal moment, one-on-one. And you're like, hey, I really care about you, and I just want to ask you on a personal level, are you going to get married? You know, like in the United States, we would ask it this way, right?
Or they would be like, do you have any plans for the future first? At least like it's a buffer question there.
Right, exactly. It depends on the relationship and the boundary.
That's true.
Right? Yeah. So if we're really, really close, the boundary doesn't need to be there.
Yeah.
But if we're, you know, not very close, then the boundary creates that buffer.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's something that United States we must have in order for us to be open.
Yeah.
But in Taiwan, I definitely did not see that.
Definitely not. Let me just share one experience. I'm pretty sure the Taiwanese people that listening, they will be like, what?
All right, let's do it. Dive in.
All right. Since last year, Eric's mom moved into the house, which is, how would you call it? Just
it's a few doors
houses.
down.
Yeah, very close. Just you walk there 1 minute. And every Monday is my time with my son. Just the two of us. We will go to a library to have a story time. Story time is a thing that you go there and spend time with other babies, and there will be a librarian there singing songs and teaching kids fun stuff, you know, and you just go there and have fun. That's like my quality time with my kid, with my son. And, you know, I just really like it. And there was one time my mother-in-law, which is Eric's mom, asked me, like, oh, can I join you guys to the story time? I said, yeah, sure. So we went there one time, and then next week, because it happened every Monday. So the next week, Sunday, she said, oh, I'll meet you outside of the library, right? And I was like, what? They're inviting her? You know? So it's kind of awkward, but I was having a lot of stress because from the Taiwanese, you know, experience, if you say no to this kind of thing to your mother-in-law,
authority,
there will be a lot of, you know,
drama.
So I was just tell Eric, like, what should I do? Tell your mom I don't want her to go. But Eric just like, you just tell her what you want. I was like, sure, I'm going to tell her.
Boundaries.
Yes. So I told her and I say, I really enjoyed our story time last week. But this week, I would like to just, Kaya and I, my son, and I hope that's okay.
Just the two of you.
Yeah, just the two of us, me and my son. And I was so scared about her message. And then a few minutes later, she sent me back, say, totally okay. Have fun in your story time. So I was like, wow, that's fun. Boundary is fun.
Yes. And so hopefully this is kind of a thing that Taiwan can start to adapt to. You know, I think one of the things about Taiwan that's so great, as you mentioned it previously, is how they are developing so much there. And it's not because they're developing this whole brand new lifestyle that only Taiwan has. No, they're going out and learning from other countries' successes and basically adapting those into their own system.
Yeah.
And so I think this is one of those traits that would be really great for Taiwan to have in terms of parenting. It's just basically creating a sense of boundaries.
Yeah, I think it's very important. It's like Taiwanese people, they learn things really fast.
They do.
They do. They're really fast. But one thing that we usually tend to, you know, oversee, which is the meaning behind it. We are really good at learning things from other countries. For example, like gender reveal party, all the things, you know, we didn't have like 5 years ago, but right now everybody's doing it because it's trendy. We learn trendy things really fast. But today, the point for us to share this is we would like to show you what's the meaning behind that. So, you know, the behavior or, you know, what we say the boundary will have meaning behind it. Well, that's healthy.
Well, and keep in mind that United States, we have had independence for 200 years.
That's true.
And we didn't actually understand what that truly meant until 50, 60 years of after having it. We had to go through lots of process of, this self-discovery, understanding what these words actually meant to us as a nation. Yeah. And then they started to actually have meaning. So I think Taiwan is doing the right thing, taking the things that work and then they'll figure it out later.
Yeah.
Just kind of play around with it, right?
Yeah.
So that's
fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this kind of goes into another point that you wanted to mention, right?
Yeah, instead of setting a boundary, like I mentioned, majority of the people, they don't have this idea what boundary is. Instead, we are encouraging, not really encouraging, we are forced to respect for authority, which already mentioned earlier, which is the leadership in every kind of group. In your family will be your parents, and between your brothers and sister will be your oldest brother or sister. Your school is your teacher. And just everything. You go into the army, there will be some, I don't know how to call him, general? I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
General, right? Yeah. You know, this kind of thing is like we've been told, and it just is. You just have to do it. You just have to respect those people. We have some like, very, I don't know how to call it. It's a very Taiwanese term.
What is it?
It's called 尊师重道.
Okay, so like respecting the importance of respecting the master, or like what is that?
尊 is like respect.
Mm-hmm.
So respect teacher, which is the authority figure, and 重道 zong is like emphasizing or pay attention to. 道 is like the 道理, the rules and disciplines, principles. Those are like the things we have to follow. And in our education system, when you're really young, probably elementary school, first or second grade, it's all been written in the book. You have to read it, and they just teach you how important it is. So I think this one comes with the good results and bad, not so positive results, which is people don't express their thoughts, or a lot of cases is like we feel the teacher is wrong or being unreasonable or being nonsense, or those kind of things, but we are afraid to speak up. If we speak up, we will be putting on the label says, oh, this is a bad student, or you are just so rebellious, or you're just this kind of bad words attached to the person instead of your behavior. We just labeled you as this horrible person.
I see.
So that, personally, I think it's a very not so positive result, because I wouldn't use the extreme words here. But another positive result is we learn how to follow rules without breaking it. Perfect example is COVID-19. Taiwan is famous for not affected by the pandemic in a very early time, like 2020, 21, when the whole world was suffering from this pandemic. But Taiwan is like the very few, like probably 2 or 3 countries has like the freedom that you can go outside and things like that. It's because the government, the authority figure says wearing a mask whenever you go out, and people followed it. Right. So this is definitely a positive result because of our traits. This trait brings out the positive result. So there are good side and bad side.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you definitely explained it in great detail about what are the positive sides of having this, and the negative sides can definitely take a toll on people's emotions, especially when we have to always listen to somebody else and not listen to our own thoughts. And this is something that the United States actually, we wish we had a little bit more of, because of our independence being so strong. It's really hard to follow a leader to the point that we, in every part of our lives, our teachers, our parents, even the president of the United States, there will be half of the group that believes that they are doing the right thing, and then the other half thinks that they're doing completely wrong. And this has caused turmoil and, confusion and chaos inside the United States, because the idea of following a leader only really exists in sports. And that's basically it. The sports world, and sometimes in business world, when we are working as a team, then we will be able to succeed. And so in these two parts of the society, United States, having groups work together is a great way to have an authority figure, because they will be able to guide people. And in teams, we have coaches. And so having coaches helps us understand that they definitely know because of experience. But for some reason, teachers and presidents and everyone else, like parents, we don't have respect for them. And so because of that, we kind of just lash out at them at any given time.
God.
And so this is one of the things that we're trying to learn how to maintain or regulate which is actually the last term I wanted to bring up today for America, is emotional regulation. One of the things that parents really want to do these days for their children is to allow them to express themselves, kind of the opposite of what Anita said with her mom, where Anita was feeling very emotional and her mom scolded her for it. In the United States nowadays is that if there is a lot of emotion being presented in school or at home or wherever, we try to allow it to happen, but also let them understand after it happens how extreme it is. So if it is like a baby, not a baby, more like someone, a toddler, 2-3 years old, and they're crying their eyes out because they're not getting enough, whatever they want, like enough hugs or enough carrots, like our son, we allow him to express that emotion fully. But afterwards, every time we let him know that, there's no need to be this amount for this situation. So specifically for the carrots, we tell our son, there's no need to be so sad that there are no more carrots. Because we have a phrase that we try to teach him, which before we were saying to him, all gone, there's no more. That made him even more upset because he believed that there is nothing left, so I should be really upset about this. Instead, we changed the term to, there will always be more. And when we said this, he actually had to think about it for a minute. He was like, huh? And he's like, what does that mean? But after we said it so many times, even though he still gets upset, he now understands that, I can be upset about not having more now, but there will be more later. So his time that he is upset, in other words, his emotional regulation has been easier for him to control. So this is the thing that most parents in the United States have been trying to teach their children these days, is to allow the emotion to happen, but also teach a lesson at the end of it. And so this is something that we've definitely noticed that works really well here. But I'm really curious. Is this something that in Taiwan you've ever noticed?
Oh, she said that it's not in our mind. We just never have that chance to express our feelings, and we don't pay attention to our feelings. We tend to think our feelings or emotions are not important. You're just being nonsense if you are being emotional. So we don't really pay close attention to those kind of things. But actually, when the kids, especially when they're really young, they react. Sorry, let me say it again. They will do something to see your reactions. That's how they learn. There is no good or bad in their world. They don't understand the concept of those two. They do things to see how you react. That's how they learn. That's how they identify their behaviors. So in Taiwan, we don't really have that because we only say that you have to follow the authority. Meaning when you're even when you're really young, you follow what your father or mother said. When you're crying for food, you'll get punished, which is the point, play an important role in most of people in Taiwan, especially like parents to their kids, which is discipline.
This is one of the last points you want to mention out, right?
That's true. So discipline comes from many different forms. The most common one in my generation is physical punishment.
Such as?
If you're not behave well, if you don't get the good score at school, you will get, whipped in certain part of your body. Mainly your hand. Some people will get hit on their bum or, all sorts of things.
And did you experience that?
Of course I do. My math was really bad when I was in middle school.
Is it not bad now?
It is bad, but no one can punish me now.
Let me get the whip.
So the first thing that I can think of, because when I was a kid, I was very quiet and shy, so I don't really get in trouble because I don't dare to try anything. But when I was a student in the middle school, you know how important it is to have a high achievement of, academic achievement is very important. So we really, really cared about your score from school. So if you didn't get a good enough score, you'll get punished. So that's that. And I think most of people right now, about probably 70-80% of people can recognize this behavior is actually wrong or harmful to the kids' emotions and development sort of things. So this one is I would like to, leave this one to everybody's judgment. Physical punishment, I do not support it. But the other part, I think it has the deeper trauma to the kids, which is they will shame or use the fear to stopping kids from doing the things they don't want the kids to do. Like, okay, if you are not, will have sort of discipline, right? Like principle you have to follow. If you're not following this, you will get punishment, which some of the common examples are they will lock the kids in the closet or in the bathroom without lights on. Or I've heard one of my students share that when she was a kid, if she didn't get a good enough score, her grandma will tell her to go to a abundant house, just stay there for a night. I was like,
oh my
Jesus
gosh.
Christ.
Wow.
It's like this. Use the fear to stopping them from doing the things they don't want. That's really bad. Or humiliating them. Like, oh, if you do this, you are so 丢脸. You're so 丢脸. How can you do that in public? Look, everybody else is looking at you. Oh my God, it's so Mama feels so embarrassed because of you. This kind
Shame. Shame on you and your cow. Mulan.
That's not Mulan, is it?
That's the movie, yeah.
Oh my goodness, it is. Okay, anyways, so yes. So a perfect example from the very ancient education way, parenting way is to shame the kid. Or the last one, I've experienced that, which is, if you do that, I don't love you.
Ooh.
妈妈不爱你哦，不行哦，你这样子妈妈不爱你哦，那妈妈不要爱你。
Wow,
Like
so using the
this.
love card, that's harsh.
Yes, those things, in my work in the short term, the kids might fear or might feel ashamed or might afraid of losing your love, then follow what you told them to do.
So generating fear in order to learn a lesson is one of the ways that Taiwanese parents will basically enforce whatever rules they want to teach their children.
Exactly. It could be conscious or subconscious, or that we just grew up from, this kind of way. Like our parents treated me that way, so it worked. I was, fearful for my father, so we thought it was respect. So we think, oh, that works, so I'm going to teach that to my kids. But it's really bad.
There are consequences.
There are consequences because, like I said, the kids, they do things to see your reactions. And those three kind of thing is like, so they won't give the kids, they will encourage the kids to try anything else. Or they will feel they are the failure instead of their behavior. I think what we're trying to say is, don't do that. That behavior is bad. But most of the time we forget about things. It's like, you do this thing, meaning you are a bad kid. We say that a lot. Like, 你不乖哦，你这是不乖的小孩。你就是很调皮，你就是 blah 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 blah.
Yeah, and this is the very last point that I wanted to express about how we're so different with Taiwan. Is it okay if I dive in here?
Sure.
So the thing about United States that we do in this kind of situation is to recognize the negative thing, but then afterwards encourage them to try to do something positive instead. So to give you a clear example, one of the things that we have noticed with our son is if he does something wrong, like he's not supposed to touch certain things, like the air conditioner, for example, because it has water in it. And if he touches it, it falls over, there's water all over the ground. And so whenever he gets close to doing that, we tell him, no, don't do that. Don't do that. And if he keeps doing it, then there will be some sort of punishment to recognize the boundary. But on the other hand, if he knows not to do it and he doesn't do it, this is the part that I think a lot of parents forget, is to, congratulate and celebrate those things. And so one of the things that we have done is basically say when he doesn't touch the air conditioner, we say, yeah, good job. And we clap and we cheer and we hug him and we kiss him. And then guess what happens? In the future, does he touch the air conditioner? Rarely. If he does, it's maybe once in a while, but he remembers when he's about to do it, oh, but if I don't do it, then I'll get praise. So we have that positive reinforcement attached to it. Now, do you think this is something that Taiwanese parents do? I think some parents do that, right?
Some parents do that, yes. So there will be, what I would suggest is more of the positive encouragement. Because, there was a lot of pressure being a parent, especially a mom in Taiwan society, because your mom is watching you how to be a mom.
Oh, right.
Right? So like, oh my God.
I can see a picture in my mind.
Yes.
Like this very dark picture, and there's this giant head of your mom like hovering above you. Are you doing it right?
Yes. You let your kids do that to you, sort of things like that.
Oh.
So mom has a lot of pressure from their mom. So they want their kids to behave the best. Don't even mention about you come from the family has a lot of brothers and sisters. Because other brothers and sisters will have kids. They will be the person you're comparing to, So
it becomes a competition.
Yes. So again, I wanted to say it's either conscious or subconscious. We were doing this, but just keep it in mind. What is the best for your kid? Even though your mom is watching, your mom is your mom. Okay.
Preach it.
Yes. So think about it. Don't feel pressure. I think a lot of mom really has a lot of pressure whenever they are teaching their kids. You know my mom, right? When the baby was born, I think you should do this to protect the head shape. It's like, I was trying so hard to keep this baby alive and you're talking about head shape.
But you still listen too. You were like, oh my God, I got to do the head shape thing that mom said.
That's what I wanted to mention because we do suffering from a lot of pressure from our mom. That was associated with a lot of things. Well, my mom recognized me as a good mom or not.
Oh, right. And then there are moments like that where there's some sort of crazy thing happens to Anita, and I'm guessing this happens to many Taiwanese women, is that if the mother says something bad about your parenting, then afterwards the mother feels like disgrace, shame, all these negative feelings about themselves, even though the mother's not necessarily saying anything bad about them, just saying something about their skill about being a parent. Well, on the other hand, if they say something positive, then you feel like you're on cloud nine. You're like, oh my God, I'm the best freaking woman on the world.
See, that's what I was talking about, those part of things. I have to bring the peace to the group, which is my family. When I have this young baby, I have to bring the peace to my family and to my parents because they are my family.
Authority.
Yes, and I have to respect the authority, which is my mom. So I have to listen to what she said in order to feel like I'm successful, not feel ashamed. I have to get the approval from my mom.
And isn't that kind of like getting an A in class? Like
that's exactly right.
So isn't that like Taiwan's like big thing too? Is like if you get straight A's, you're a good child.
You are the golden child if you got straight A from your school.
So if mom gives you a gold star for being a good mom, then you're like a straight A student, basically, right?
So basically, that's what I wanted to say, because we associate those things with love. One, we don't say love when we are really young. We learn if we obey our parents, if we get straight A, if we don't do the things that will make my mom angry, my mom will be so nice to me. So when I was really young, I recognized that as love. So you see, that was the problem.
Wow.
It's not a bad thing that you realize it now, because I also have to go through a lot of personal development and, communicate with my mom to realizing it. So it's all love. What we want is love. So now you think about it, to your kids is the same. Your kids just want love. If you put your kid in a situation like what I mentioned, feared, ashamed, or without your love, if you think about it, you as a kid, now you can see what your parents were doing to you, and you can make your own judgment if you still see this thing as a positive thing to do your kid or not. But what I just mentioned about that is like, the whole system.
They all connect.
They all connect. So that's why I mentioned that it's very important. It's all love. Final point I wanted to mention is the kids. Their brain is very precious, which is also another personal interest. I like studying neuroscience, which is the brain, especially for a young age, because I just love babies. They are incredible. So their brain is, they are adopting a lot of things.
It's very flexible.
Very flexible.
It's like plastic.
Yeah. And they want love. Everybody wants love. one thing I think you can take away from today's episode is doesn't matter how harsh your mom treated you when you were young, it's all love. Even though it sounds really strange, like, how can that be love? Those behaviors that come from love. They love you, otherwise they won't do that to you. It's called, like my mama always say that, if you are not my daughter, I wouldn't do this to you. And the daughter will be like, I wish I'm not your daughter.
Yeah, right, totally.
But your mom said that has a reason. They don't know how to express love either. So what you can do right now is to forgive what they were doing, because notice every parents are trying their best. They know how to be a good parent. Right now, you know everything that we just debunked and, break it down to you. What you can do is love your parents. Love your parents to let them know that you love them. They don't have to be always this authority for you to follow, because for them, that's love. If their kids follow what they say, means, oh, my kids love me. Because again, nobody teach them what true love is. We are all associated and learning from all the environments like this. So you let them know that you love them, and they will be free. You can set them free. So they will feel like I don't have to always be part of our kids' life, because deep down I know my kids love me. And they told me that. And you can love your kid, because without your parents giving you pressure, you can have so much time and so much energy to just treat your kids the way you want it to, because only you knows what's the best for your kid.
Truth.
So that's the things I really want people to listen to it.
I think it's a very great final message, Anita. Thank you very much for sharing that. And I think that is just the tip of the iceberg about how to understand parenting. And if you really want to deep dive into the mixture that we're introducing to you today, definitely feel free to reach out on Taiwanica Podcast Instagram to Anita herself. She will be happy to organize times with you to be able to communicate this in greater detail if this is something that you are interested in, because I know there's a lot of people out there who are curious about this kind of situation. So definitely feel free to reach out. Anita, thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
I'm always here, but
yes,
thank you.
But today was your day, and we appreciate all the things that you shared.
Thank you.
Yes. So, well, we hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did so, please definitely follow us on Instagram at Taiwanica Podcast. And you know that we love coffee, so if you want to help us buy some coffee, you can go to our buymeacoffee.com/Taiwanica, and you can buy as many cups for us as you want. And so, yeah, well, we hope you enjoyed today's episode.
We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for tuning in to Taiwanica. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. That helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.